Oh,
And we're live. Hello, hello, hello. It's the Shiminator, and
and Josh Baldwin, Mad Money Millennial,
let's go. We are
get it.
live. We're going to be talking about real
Real
estate.
estate. Let's get it.
Yes.
I didn't mean to say it at the same time as you, but I guess Jinx showed me a soda.
All good, bro. Bye. It's on me.
All right, man. Yeah, so real estate's a really cool topic. Not something that's really popular right now. You know, Bitcoin is something that's a lot more popular, but real estate's also really important. Like you see the market coming up, appreciation is through the roof. It's definitely a seller's market right now, so people are really interested in holding on to their house, not so much buying real estate, but more just holding on to their real estate, and just making sure that they can make as much as money as possible from the appreciation and the interest rates and everything like that. So the Shiminator, do you have any interest in real estate? Do you
I
have
absolutely
you
do.
ever
Yeah. So
invested
I
in it?
love real
Or
estate. So my grandparents actually owned a lot of real estate, and definitely I'm going to be owning some real estate in some point in the future. I think real estate's really good for using wealth that you already acquired to build a lot more wealth, because it does require a large minimum requirement in order to actually have real estate. You can't buy real estate with $25,000 in most places. You need a good amount of money to really have a good rental property. As you know from like Graham Stephan, Meet Kevin, it takes a really large amount of initial offering in order to sacrifice your soul and get that real estate. And you don't
yeah,
want to take out any loans. So yeah, real estate's great. It's an incredible opportunity, but I would say the biggest issue with it is how much you actually need to start with. It's a great way to build wealth, but it's not a great way to start building wealth, you know?
yeah, exactly. You know, like you said, you need like a good amount of money usually to start with if you really want to make a name for yourself in real estate and start
Exactly.
making big amounts of gains right away. But if you can't do that right away, there are ways that you can make money in real estate with not so much capital to start with. All right. You can do things like financing for a house, right? So you can do things like FHA loans, which you only put down 3 to 3.5%. And then the financing covers the rest. Or you can do conventional low interest loans, like conventional loans, like 5%, 6%, up to 10%, where you don't have to get the FHA loans. Like you may not qualify for those, but you can still qualify for the low down payment programs like FHA and conventional.
For sure. And I mean, it's definitely a possibility to get a loan. The only thing I would say is that if you're going to do a fixer upper, meaning if you're going to get a place and you're going to rent it out and it's already basically done and good and you're ready to rent it almost immediately, I would agree 100% with you that a loan can work. The problem is that a lot of people, they get into real estate and they forget about all the costs involved, especially when you first start in real estate. There's so many issues that come along. Rental properties, to make it rentable and to make it a good place, it takes an enormous amount of effort and time and money. So yeah, I definitely agree that a loan can work. The thing with taking out loan, with anything with debt, is before you take out the debt, you really need to know what exactly you're going to be spending that debt on and what the worst possible scenario is going to be. Because I think a lot of times people think, oh, I'll just buy a rental property, rent it out, and make bank. You know, you'll make
Yeah,
bank, but you might also lose your house and your shirt because you didn't plan on the extra $20,000 that the flood happened and ruined your tiles, or
exactly.
there's a hurricane in Texas or whatever, and then all of a sudden your rental property is garbage. So you do definitely have to plan on having a lot of extra money in your own pocket before you start taking out loans and buying rentals. But I 100% agree. I mean, real estate is an incredible opportunity. Everyone needs houses, and housing will always be needed. So I would
Exactly.
agree.
Yeah, that's really important to like you said, make sure that you get your housing at market value, not below market value. Not, make sure you don't have enough money. Make sure you have enough money to be able to cover all the renovation costs, to cover the down payment, to cover all the 6 months possible expenses that you might not have foreseen, but it came anyway. Just because
Exactly.
I don't know, we're in hard times right now. We're in COVID. You know, things just happen.
Always
So it's
overplan.
exactly always overplan. Always have a an offset amount, margined amount that you can fall back on if you don't have enough money to begin with.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's really important, definitely.
What about you?
So
You wanna buy some rental properties? You wanna buy properties? What's your plan?
yeah, so I actually bought one unit, so that's what I started with. And the way I did that was, that's like actually a pretty good topic that you brought up. So we're going to talk about like steps to buying a house. Okay, so how do we
Right.
start
Let's
to
do it.
buying a house? I guess I'll use my unit as an example to be able to kind of put two and two together and just put like a real life scenario on top of this.
Sure.
So the way I started was the first things first. Okay, what you need is you need to be able to have enough money for the down payment for the home that you want to buy. So you need to find the range of the home that you want to buy. So you're looking in like the 200-300K range. You're looking like the mid 500K range, like the $1 million range. Like it depends like where you're starting out at and like how much capital you really have invested to be able to go and buy those certain ranges of homes. So if you're first starting out, like what I always recommend is people start with the lower end real estate and work their way up. So you don't need a big amount of money to start with. You can start out with a small amount, like 3.5%, like FHA loans, like I mentioned. For me personally, the condos that I was looking at didn't qualify for FHA, so I had to go with conventional. So I had to put down a little bit more down than 3.5%. I put down 5%, but that was still enough to just get me by. And then the entire rest of the loan was financed into the mortgage. So that's how I made it work.
And what kind of housing are you looking at? Are you looking at fixer uppers, or are you talking about houses that just need to be sold or need to be bought and used?
So what I was specifically looking at was condos because I was leaving my parents' house and I wanted to move into an actual home that I would be in for 1-2 years, and then move to somewhere else if I felt like it. But I wanted just like my own place. So what I was looking at specifically was condos. They're low, they're cheap, they're not that difficult to maintain because a lot of the housing in condo areas are maintained by FHA. Or sorry, HOA, different thing.
Okay.
HOA, so Housing Administration, pretty much takes care of like all of the maintenance on your property. So like the hedging, making sure the roof is nice and undamaged, from the rain and everything like that. If you live in like places like where there's snow, you can get damage on roofing areas. Things can crack. You get molding cracks. You're pretty much screwed when it comes to plumbing because as that expands, like you can just get worse and worse problems. So you just want to be in a place where like you can get cheap housing and it's safe and it can be well maintained by the HOA and you just don't have that many problems. So that's what I was looking for specifically.
Interesting.
So that's what I did.
What makes
Yeah.
you choose a particular place over another place? Like, what do you look for? Let's say someone's a brand new, they just started, they're looking into trying to get into real estate. What would be the first thing you try to pay attention to? Like, what would you recommend? The first thing you look into a house, you're looking in, you go, is this the place I want? Is this what I want? What would be the first thing you'd look at?
Well, the thing that I would suggest is before you even start looking at houses, is you need to get a pre-approval letter.
Okay.
So before you even like start looking at specific homes, you need to be able to shop for the homes. And the way you get the license to be able to shop for the homes is a pre-approval letter.
Okay.
So the way that you do that is that you get a realtor. Maybe you'll have like one recommended by a buddy or a family member, and that's typically where you'd start. And if you can't do that, and you do your research online and you find a good realtor that way, and then you call them up and you say, "Hey, I'm looking at this home, or I'm looking at this home," and then you say, "Okay, I got my pre-approval letter." And then the realtor will be like, "Okay, what do you qualify for? Like, what range are you looking for? What area are you looking in?" And then you just tell them, "Okay, I got this pre-approval letter that says I qualify for a 300K home. Like, what can you show me in the area that is worth 300K?" And then they'll give you a list. They'll send you an email. They set you up with like an online portal where they will send you they're called comps. And those are basically homes that are comparable with each other in home value. And that is basically what you extract information from to be able to determine where you're going to be living at and if it's for you.
Okay.
So that's basically how you'd start out buying real estate is get the pre-approval letter, call your realtor, get set up with a lender. So the lender is the person who's basically going to set you up with your home loan to be able to go and purchase real estate. And typically, like your realtor can suggest a lender to you, and that's basically the best way you can do it because you're setting yourself up with your own team. to go and purchase your home.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
I've definitely heard that if you're going to start investing in real estate, it's incredibly important to start with a management, someone who runs the buildings for you, who does the fixer upper parts. You can definitely get a management that would help you. You can actually hire them online. They're not really that expensive, and that will obviously cover a lot of those things, including what you're mentioning. Sometimes the management even covers the actual acquisitions for you, the actual purchasing of the homes. So if you're new, it's definitely a good idea to do a managing team. And then you basically don't have to do almost any of the things you mentioned, but it's obviously good to know the process either way. And not everyone can obviously just afford a management team. So that's really good what you said, to know the
Yeah.
process. What do you think of getting a real estate license? Are you interested in that? Is that something you want to do? Get your real estate license?
So a real estate license is a really good idea for someone who's really primarily invested in real estate, I'd say, as a job.
Okay.
Um, but also getting a real estate license can be a good idea if you're not wanting to shell out the real estate commission fees when you're purchasing a home. Now, I don't know the actual process as to like how you would purchase your own home as your own real estate agent. I know there's something called like self-representation. I'm not an expert on that specifically, but you can do things like that. The process would be a lot more hands-on because you would have to go and handle, the loan verification paperwork. You'd have to call the lender and say, is everything taken care of? You would basically be the person on the phone with everyone,
Right.
which is typically what the realtor would handle
Interesting.
in most of those situations. So yeah, like property management can be like a great idea as well. And like you were mentioning before, property management is like an easy way for people to be able to handle multiple real estate properties. And if they have the money, that is a good way to just start out because you can just have them handle all of the legwork.
Right.
Um,
Especially in your first few properties, because you're still not really, I mean, like it's easy to buy a property, but what actually makes a property cash flow, not making all the common mistakes that are often made when people first buy properties. Like they'll fix up a bunch of things that don't really need to be fixed or don't need to be fixed in that way. They'll replace all the lighting with bad lighting because they don't really know what lighting works. If you ever watch
yeah,
Meet Kevin, he always talks about all the newbie mistakes that people make and all the problems with, don't fix that roof, just raise it or don't do this or don't do that,
yeah,
buy these lights. And it's so much knowledge and information you really need to make a place cash flow. That's the only
uh-huh,
reason I say, like, if you have enough money to buy good real estate, invest in a good management team or at the very least a good advisor, because if you make a small mistake, that small mistake can cost you $20,000.
yeah,
In stocks, if you make a small mistake, you can generally like either learn from it and recover. But in real estate, you make a small mistake and you replace a roof you don't need to replace. Now you're $50,000 in the hole. So that's the only
right,
reason I say that. But I absolutely agree. And also, if you get a real estate license, you can learn a lot of the things that are important in housing and in the housing market. Um, it just gives you a better idea of what real estate is, and you get to watch pros in action. And knowing, like, the more you know, especially when it comes to finance, personal finance, the more you know, even about the little things, the things that are boring to everyone else, the more
mhm,
likely you are to succeed. Like, you'll get that edge. You know a little bit more about this housing market, you know a little bit more about loans, and you're going to have a much better advantage over someone who doesn't. So that's the
right.
only reason I say that. Yeah, but absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, and like it's funny that you brought up Meet Kevin. He's actually a really good example of the opposite of not getting a property management company and just starting out small. That's something what Meet Kevin and his like girlfriend at the time did when they were like 19.
Yeah, yeah.
And the way they did that, I think one of them was working at like Jamba Juice and the other one was working like at a UPS or something like that. I can't remember. But the way got the 20% battery warning.
Want to plug
There
it
we
in?
go. Yeah.
Plug it in.
Always happens.
We can delete
So
this
yeah,
part. We can cut this out. I'll cut it out.
it's all good. Yeah, so yeah, Meet Kevin and his
Bloopers.
girlfriend are a
We got
pretty good
bloopers.
right. So that couple is a pretty good example because they started from the bottom. They basically saved up all of their earnings, and I think what they did was they split 7,500 each toward a $15,000 down payment on a foreclosed property, And the way that they covered the renovation costs, because you need a lot more money than 15,000 to be able to cover renovation costs
Right.
when it comes to foreclosure. So what they did to pitch the other like 30 grand that they needed to go and renovate their property was they went and got a FHA 203K loan, which is a renovation loan, which these are very difficult to get. It also helps when you're a real estate agent because you can network with people that can set you up with these types of loans or get you good referrals or things like that. But that's a great loan to have. That's probably the most like that's like the best loan that you can possibly get basically in real estate as an investor, because they not only like roll like the mortgage, they roll the renovation costs into the mortgage, but also the down payment. So you put the down payment in, and then they cover the rest, and you basically get an entire property, an entire rental property, and then basically from there you just go and take all that renovation money, go and invest it into I don't know, new sinks, new walls, like whatever you need to do to make it look fantastic, and then you basically profit off of all the sweat equity that you just basically got from just fixing up the property, getting it low, and just like not even having to shell out more than $15,000 of your own money to go and do it. And then when you put renters in there, now you've basically set yourself up with a rental property that was pretty much completely covered for you, minus 15K, which you get back anyway over time. You know, if you sell it or just with appreciation costs. So it's great. It's a great thing to do. It's a great way to start out real estate. And like I said, I mean, they're really hard to get, but if you could do it, like that's basically what you'd want to do, ideally.
I mean,
And
Kevin was smart though. I mean, when he did it, first of all, he improved his credit score incredibly fast. He worked on it. I heard he started working on it as soon as he could. And so because of that, he had really good credit, was able to get decent loans. I mean, that's really key. Whenever someone asks me like, why should I use credit? Credit sucks. Loans suck. I don't like debt. And I agree. Debt can really not. It's not worth having debt that you don't need. It's a really bad idea. Like debt is bad. Debt is negative, right? We all agree with that. But there are cases where if you use debt properly and you're smart with the debt that you take out and you plan ahead and you plan for the misfortunes that might befall you, and you have a good credit score, you can use that to your advantage. Like a lot of people say, debt's bad, period. There's no exceptions. And the truth is, if you use debt to your advantage, the people who use debt properly, they make a lot more from the debt than the people collecting the debt make. I mean, if you use your miles properly and you invest in your credit score and in your credit cards, at the end of the day, especially if you use cash flow to your advantage and you invest wisely in which debt you use and which ones you don't, and you know exactly the formula to get a good credit score, you're going to end up making money from it. You will. Like even if you have to pay 2 or 3% or 5% back to the people who gave you the loan, if you end up using the debt properly, you can make 10%, 15% from the acquisitions, whether it's property, rental properties, so a new business, whatever the debt might be influencing or using, whatever you use that debt for. So I think debt really is good. It's a major topic. And I know a lot of people are very firmly against debt, but I 100% agree. If you use the right loan and the loan basically pays for the property, and then you make a ton of money from the property and you plan ahead and you know what disasters could befall you, it's an incredible opportunity. Now, most people don't get rich from real estate. It's a common misconception. Most people, they get decently rich, not incredibly wealthy, but they get enough money, 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 saved up over time. And then they use that to build 100,000 into 500,000, 500,000 into a million. Most people don't make their first 100,000 from real estate though. That's a mistake. If you're broke and you have no money, don't be taking out debt. Only take out debt when you have some money, you have a plan, you can prepare for disasters, and then you can use real estate to really propel yourself forward. And that's really a very good idea. I like that. I think we should actually title this video "How to Buy Real Estate Like a Pro," or "How to Actually Buy Real Estate," because this is good. This is a good conversation.
Yeah, how to actually buy real estate, because there's a lot of just like misinformation out there that you can just go and buy a property and just get rich all of a sudden, or go flip houses and get rich all of a sudden. Like today's day and age, you would not want to go and do flips. All right,
it's a seller's market. Too good to be true. It's too good to be true. It's
the
not
prices
true.
are so sky high right now,
Yeah,
man, that like I swear, like people are trying to flip homes, but they're just like they're
they
barely
just
like
cannot.
scratching the
Yeah,
surface when they try to do
exactly.
it. They're like buying I don't know 300K homes and trying to flip them, and then they're flipping them for like 325. And
Right.
guess what? Like all that money just got chewed up with the real estate fees
Yeah.
when you just try to flip it. So
One of the
it's
best ways
definitely
actually to get a good deal nowadays is, as far as I'm aware, is to actually pay off debt from homeowners that aren't haven't lived in the location in a while. You can actually do your research online. If you go, I think each county has their own website, and you can actually pay off the loans on people's houses that they've just abandoned and they haven't been paying their rent. And if you pay off their mortgage, um, assuming they don't end up paying the mortgage or that they don't end up paying you, you actually can end up buying the house for a lot cheaper. So there are ways to get really good deals and to get really good real estate. I would say the only warning that we both agree on is don't get involved in real estate quickly. Take your time, understand the market, understand that just because something sells for 500,000 doesn't mean yours is going to sell for 500,000. And yeah, just don't make unnecessary risks. And if you're going to get into debt, be very, very careful. Plan
yeah,
ahead.
very very
If
careful.
you're working on very small margin, very small razor thin, if you're like everything has to go perfect for me to make money, you're on very dangerous waters. Because if one thing goes
Mhm.
wrong, and something will go wrong, or something's supposed to cost 50,000, but it will always cost more, especially if you're inexperienced.
Yeah.
Now you're in the hole, and you have debt. So that I agree 100% with that. If you're going to get involved in real estate, you got to be really careful.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you have good debt, not bad debt. And
Exactly.
that's also pretty good. I'm pretty trustworthy in the system that we have today, though, when it comes to people getting qualified for home loans. Like for me, myself personally, it was extremely difficult to get a loan, and it's just been getting harder ever since the 2008, housing crash.
Right.
They just made it so difficult. They were checking my salary, like statements all the way back to like 5 years ago. They were checking like my insurance. They wanted me to refinance a bunch of stuff to lower payments, just to lower my debt to income ratio enough to be able to qualify for the loan. That's like the biggest thing that homeowners need to figure out when they're wanting to buy a home is my debt to income ratio low enough for me to be able to qualify for a loan.
Right.
And that's sometimes really difficult for people because a lot of people have bad debt. They buy a brand new car for 40 grand and they're making $200 a month payments. Guess what? That's a huge liability for you.
Right. Exactly.
And when you're trying to get qualified for a home loan and you got that brand new car that you owe 38K on,
Yeah.
like you're not going to have a good time because they're going to see that and that's going to, count against you when they're calculating your debt to income ratio and seeing if you have the financial ability to pay back this mortgage, month after month, which is what they want to see when they're trying to give you a loan. They want to see is this person financially stable enough and balanced enough over all of his expenses to be able to pay this mortgage back each month without, you know,
Yeah.
foreclosing the property, or defaulting is the term.
Also, the car is not
Uh,
worth it. The $40,000 car, it's not worth it. You have a choice in life. You can either look rich or you can be rich, and very few people can do both. If you want to be rich and you
right.
want money and you want rental properties and you want to succeed greater than the average population, you got to save. You got to invest in yourself and your future. And if you're spending money on a $40,000 car, I don't care how rich you are. You could have $10 million, but if you're spending money on a $40,000 car, it's just a matter of time before you end up shooting yourself in the foot. So I agree 100%.
Yeah.
The car is not worth it, not only because of the debt, but also because in the end of the day, that car is taking away from the investments you're going to be making, and then you can't buy a rental property because you have a massive amount of debt and a debt liability. So I agree.
Exactly.
One of my favorite YouTube channels to listen to is Dave Ramsey, only because he really explains these kinds of things so clearly and concisely. And one of the things he always talks about is debt, and it's so true. Like you really have a choice. You have a choice. You can either look rich or be rich. That's it. There's no other way. Like there are people out there who can look rich and be rich, but it's just not likely. So that's just a choice you want to have. And anytime you
Yeah.
think about buying a $40,000 car, think about a rental property you could have and just be making bank from, instead.
Mhm.
So I agree 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely important to, not be showing off. Have good debt, not bad debt. Don't be buying $40,000 cars. Save up for the $40,000 down payment instead. And
Exactly.
today's day and age, it's really important to be able to um, collect these rental properties and be able to invest in real estate today, because interest rates are at a record low. They're at historic lows. They've never been this low before. So, it's only logical that they'll go up from here, in which case it's going to be harder to buy real estate. It's going to be harder to get into the game. So you
Right.
got to start now. You got to start, when you have a little bit of money saved up, just try it out. Like, try to get qualified
I mean,
for an
there is one other way you can do it as well. There's a lot of people, they what they do is there's a trick. Instead of just buying a rental property, or instead of buying your first property, for your first property, what you do is you rent out like you buy a house, right? And you live in the basement, you rent it
Mhm.
out, and then you rent out the rest of the house. So while you're living in the basement, the rest of the house is someone else is using it. So either part of the house, or you rent out different parts of the house to other people. And then once you make a certain amount of
Exactly.
money, you pay off the mortgage from the rental property, you move into the main house and you start renting out your basement. And then you buy a new property. And a lot of
Yeah.
people do this. It's actually very common in the Jewish community. A lot of people do this, and it's incredibly valuable information, and not everyone knows this. So I wanted to share that. Like, if you're thinking about buying a property, but you don't want to own your own place and have another place, just get a nice house, rent out as much of it as you can for the greatest price you can. Live in the basement, live dirt. That's what I'm talking about. Like, look poor. But then at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you end up paying off your mortgage because multiple people are renting out your house. You're living not so nice. You switch positions. Now you're living in
Mhm.
the main house. You rent out the basements. You're still making income. And then you do the same thing. You repeat the process. You rinse and
Exactly.
repeat. And this is how you
And
build your wealth from there.
yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up, because it's funny you said that, because that's exactly what I did with my first unit. It was not only a rental property, but I actually lived in it, and I'm still living in it today. This is what I'm filming
Right.
from. So what I did was, when I moved into it, I immediately, as soon as I got this property, I immediately looked for renters, because it's a 2 bedroom, 2 bath. So what I did was,
Right.
I moved into this room. I got my own private bathroom, and then the other bedroom and bathroom I rented out. So that's currently being rented out by a couple right now, um, and I'm in this room right now, and yeah, they're paying more than half than that I am right now to pay for the mortgage. So it's
Exactly.
it's it's fantastic. I'm paying the same amount as a renter would, living in an average apartment in San Diego, but I'm 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 owning this place,
Right.
and they're paying off my mortgage for me. So that it's just a fantastic investment opportunity to have, and
Exactly.
that's probably what I'm going to be doing with the next place.
Yeah.
It's actually something that my lender recommended to me. A great tip for real estate investors: move into your first property, rent out the other rooms, like you said, and then save up for another 3 to 5% for another down payment for a conventional loan, and do the same thing. Move into the next place, rent out the place you are in currently, and
Exactly.
then rent out the other rooms in the second place too. So you just get, you get income from multiple sources. You have your income from your first rental property, and now you have rental income from your other room in your second property as well. So
There's a
it's
will, there's a way. That's the truth. If you have the will and you want to have rental properties and you're willing to do what it takes, you can do it. It doesn't matter how poor you are. It doesn't matter what situation you have in life. If you have the desire and the desire is strong enough, you can
Mhm.
succeed. That's the takeaway from here. You didn't grow up filthy rich, but you decided, you made a decision. I'm going to do this. I'm going to find a way. And when there's a will and the will is strong enough, the way will appear. It will come at some point with enough work. It pays
Uh-huh.
off, and that's really great. I'm happy to hear you did that. I didn't even realize you were doing that, so that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was a great choice for me. And like I said, like, I'm probably going to be doing that again. Just keep on doing the move-in rentals, where you move in, you rent out to other rooms, and you just keep repeating the same process.
right.
That's just a really great way to build wealth and build your real estate portfolio.
Agreed.
And it's definitely like a really cheap way to do it too, because you're not constantly shelling out the 20% down payment, which is what most people will tell you online to do. Don't do that. That's so
I mean,
expensive. You
Listen,
know,
there are definitely times when paying more is worth it. If you think there's
I
gonna be
mean,
a lot of fix-ups, you don't
yeah, or
have
you
too
want
much
to wipe
debt.
out the PMI. That's a good
Right,
option as well.
right.
Um, but like, if you're really just trying to start out with a small amount of money with some pocket change, like you really just want to, go for those low down payment conventional loans or the FHA.
Right,
But yeah, if you have the money, that's definitely a faster way to build wealth is going, the 20% down payment
right.
method for investment properties. If you can move money quickly between places, that can be a
I mean,
great
if it's
idea.
a fixer upper and there's a lot needs to be fixed, I'm not against doing 20% because you don't want to have too much debt when there's a big issue. If you
Yeah,
don't know for sure how much it's going to cost you, first of all, don't get involved at all because if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. But if you do suspect that it's going to have a big issue, like if it's a fixer upper and you can tell there's going to be a lot of disasters coming your way, then I mean, I think you should pay as much as you can. You don't want to have too much debt on your hands when you can have a disaster. But yeah,
yeah,
there's definitely a lot of options, and that's definitely something you'd want to explore. Okay,
yeah,
I
definitely.
think we should wrap it up.
Yeah, it's good
Anything else
talking
you
to you.
want to add?
Nope, that was it.
Great.
Real estate investors, listen to what we had to say today. We had a lot of good information
Hell yeah.
for beginners. This is stuff that like took me years to learn, and I obsessively read about this stuff all the time. So
Yeah, same here.
definitely, pay attention to the key details that we talked about here.
Oh yeah.
And thank you guys for watching as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. It only takes a second. You can always change your mind. Subscribe to my channel, subscribe to his channel. Subscribe right now because you can always just decide later, you know what, I don't like him, I'm unsubscribing. But at least for now, you're in. We're
Yeah,
gonna help you out. We're gonna give you all the advice you need. We're not the super like fancy editing, cutting, all that. We're just down to earth, talking to you about the truth. And
yeah, just
keep
real
watching
talk,
our
guys.
channels. Yeah, you're gonna gain a lot of information. Make sure you check out his channel, check out my channel. That is it.
Yeah.
Peace.
All right, talk to you later.